Christian communicators are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we balance humanity and being humble and transparent with really continuing to do the work that God has called us to do, even through the midst of sometimes devastating circumstances?
Bob, that's a powerful question, and I faced that when my son was arrested for a very serious crime. And I knew I had a choice. I could either hide for much of the rest of my life, not stand on a platform anymore, quit writing books, and kind of step out of the public eye in terms of ministry, or I could be open about our journey. I could share the devastation of what happened, how God has brought redemption as a part of the process of our healing, as our son confessed his sin first to the Lord and then to those he had hurt. And we realized that being vulnerable opened the door for many other people to share their stories of what they were going through. In fact, a woman who had been in my Bible study fellowship class came up to me and she said, "Carol, after hearing about the arrest of your son, I want you to know, I used to think you were perfect, but now I think we could be friends."
Wow, that is powerful.
And Bob, you know, when you and I are the real deal with people, the first thing that happens is they'll say, "Wow, I didn't know you'd been through that, but could I share my story with you?" And I have found again and again, when we don't pretend we're perfect, we don't pretend everything's fine, like we always say, when we say, "I'm hurting, I hope you'll pray for me because I need your prayers, my family needs your prayers," suddenly people are willing to say, "I'm on a hard journey." They might say sometimes, "My marriage is falling apart," or "My child has disappointed me greatly. He or she is running away from every biblical principle we ever taught them." And so I'm discovering that the more honest I am about my journey, the more opportunities I get to minister. And it's still hard. It's hard to be in a place with a son who's incarcerated with a life sentence, but I know that God is not wasting the sorrow. He's using it as a platform to bring about more people knowing who Jesus is and what he can do in our times of hardship and stress.
Carol Kent joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio. It is the Summer 2025 Christian Product Expo in Duluth, Georgia. This is the Meeting House on Faith Radio. Well, Carol, as I mentioned, you're a Christian communicator. You have Speak Up Ministries. You help others to speak well, to speak to the glory of God, to implement various skills so they develop their gifts. And, of course, you yourself speak. You have a speaking and conference ministry and a writing ministry. In fact, you have released just days ago, not one, not two, but 5 books at the very same time. But they're all under the Moments of Grace series, and there are moments of grace for women, moms, grandmas, sisters, and teachers. What were you thinking?
I asked myself that question after I signed that contract, Bob, for sure. That was a lot of writing to do. But my heart is so committed to wanting people to understand truth. And I have discovered that many people remember a spiritual or biblical point when it's wrapped in a story they can never forget. And so we put these books together as story-based devotionals, and each one of them has a key quotation. It has a Bible passage, and it is teaching a biblical illustration of something that God wants us to know as a principle to live by. But the stories are captivating. And so people who don't necessarily ever pick up a Christian book find themselves saying, "Wow, I really like these stories." And in the process, they might be introduced to the gospel message in one of those stories, or they might find out, "Wow, I can find some hope and encouragement for my journey here because this is a story about somebody I identify with." And so I want you to know this did not happen overnight. It was more like a 2-year process of putting these 5 books together. But what a joy it is to see them now off the press, and they are ready to be in the hands of people who will be blessed by them.